Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. I'm Liz Purnell, an Education and Training Specialist with the Institute of Child Nutrition. Welcome to the Team Up Thursdays webinar on Team Up for Best Practices in Financial Management. The Institute of Child Nutrition, along with its Applied Research Division, has collaborated with USDA to develop Team Up for School Nutrition Success. Team Up is a unique learning experience designed to enhance the operation of school nutrition programs. It provides tailored technical assistance to programs that want to maintain a healthy environment and increase student meal program participation. As a follow-up to the Team Up Pilot Workshop in 2014, a monthly webinar series was launched. It serves as a platform to further enhance partnerships and to provide an opportunity for all school nutrition professionals to discuss issues and provide solutions and best practices used by districts in key areas. The ICN has created a website for all materials and resources specifically related to Team Up. You can find the information at www.theicn.org/teamup. Today's webinar will present a summary of best practices related to financial management that have been shared during the last year's Team Up workshops across the country. You will also hear information on how to request a Team Up workshop for your state. It's a pleasure for me to introduce our speaker today. We have Lonnie Burt with us. She is the Senior Director for Hartford Public Schools in Hartford, Connecticut, and has served as a lead mentor for several Team Up events. And I will wrap up with some information about Team Up and how to request a Team Up workshop from ICN. So we'll go ahead and get started, and now Lonnie, I'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon. As Liz said, we are talking about financial accountability today. I am the Senior Director for Hartford Public Schools in Connecticut. Financial management requires several things. You do need to have a good fiscal reporting system of some type, whether you're doing that manually in an Excel or using accounting type software. Key performance indicators are also good tools to use. You have to have good cash handling procedures. It does require good communication and certainly training. And you really do need to keep your eye on the ball. Financial management requires you to be constantly looking at your income and expenses and what you need to do to make sure that you're staying on track with what your budgeting has been. So when you're looking at where does your money come from and where does your money go, typically the categories are going to be in income. It's about balancing your income with your expenses. Your income is going to be in the form of federal reimbursements, and if your state has any state reimbursements. Certainly your sales to students and adults, meals, and a la carte programming. If you do any daycare or Head Start programs in your district, catering, grants are typically the areas where you're going to find income sources. Your expenses, of course, are always going to be your food, supplies, labor and benefits, equipment purchases, as well as equipment repairs, office supplies, licensing fees and technology upgrades such as computers and copiers, telephone systems. If you have a bank courier, somebody who's picking up that money and bringing it to the bank for you, education and training, and then there's always some indirect costs. Tools for sound fiscal management really are in several categories, but your budget is going to be a big tool to use. Your financial reporting systems, both at the school site level in your POS systems and in accounting. Again, whether you're using accounting software or whether you're doing this in an Excel type system. An income and an expense statement or a profit and loss, depending upon what you call it, should be done both for the site levels and also consolidated for your district program. Monthly inventories, cash handling procedures, proper procurement, key performance indicators are all tools that are going to help you have good, sound fiscal management. And most importantly, I think, is going to be to have customer acceptable menus, because it's going to be your customers who drive your income and your revenue, and therefore are going to influence your expenses. So I'm going to start with the budget. And the budget is an annual plan for what the fund expects to accomplish. Projections for revenue and expenses are made based upon the previous year financial information, current market trends, enrollment, and reimbursement rate increases. The budget is a plan. It is a projection of what you think will happen in the upcoming time period. Typically, you do a budget for the year, and when planning for that upcoming year, the budget will be your valuable tool. So what you want to look at when you're putting a budget together is, are your income projections higher than your expense projections? And if not, where can you increase your revenue and decrease your expenses? And I think it's really important that you look at both. How can I increase revenue? At the same time, how can I decrease expenses? You can't always just try and cut expenses. You do want to focus on how you can increase your revenue. During the budget year, it's also helpful to use the budget to compare to your actual income and expenses. It's important for you to know, are you on track? Do you need to make adjustments? Are you projecting to earn this much income and now you're up or down? If you are, what do you need to do to balance that budget? The other tool that I think is extremely important and that we use a lot here in our district is the income and expense statements, or profit and loss statements, P&L. All of those are referring to the same thing. The income and expense statements show the management how the fund has performed for a given period of time. It needs to be compared, analyzed, and acted upon to be effective. It's not just something that you glance at. It is an actual living document and in real time. So again, when you're looking at an income and expense statement, comparisons are going to be made to industry standards. So for example, when you're talking about percentage of food costs or percentage of labor costs, those are things that you would look at for industry standards and see where you stand compared to those. Prior periods of time, other schools in your district, other districts themselves, and what were your budget goals? Are you on track with those? When you're looking at comparisons, they should be made using percentages of cost to total revenue. And when you look at an income and expense statement, especially if you are comparing year-to-date to last year's year-to-date, you will certainly see some variances in percentages that are easy to spot. You may find that last year you were within a certain percentage, and now this year might be up 5 or 10%. That should be something that needs to be drilled down and looked at a little further. Again, individual income and expense statements really should be done by individual schools and also consolidated for the whole district. Most of us are looking at our programs as a whole, but you also want to know how your individual schools are doing, and is there a problem at one location or not. They certainly are going to help you point out where problems exist. Do you have the revenue sources that you expected? Is your income down? Is your income up? Are your labor costs higher than you expected or projected? Those are the types of things that you will see on an income and expense statement and learn to analyze. So why do you want to use an income and expense statement? So throughout the year, again, it is very important to monitor the revenue and expenses to determine the financial health of the program. You can use that income and expense statement to compare it to your budget, again, to determine, are you on track with the projections that you made? If you projected to have so much income and so much expenses and therefore end up at the year with a certain amount of dollars left over, are you going to be in the black, or are you going to be in the red at the end of the year? By looking at your income and expense statements on a regular, consistent basis, you can ward off any changes or adjust to changes quicker. Comparing to the prior year will show trends upward or downward that may need to be addressed. Again, if your food cost last year was 38, 42%, whatever that was, and now it's 52%, there's something wrong, and that needs to be addressed and adjusted before the year end. Using cost as a percentage of revenue relates expenses to the revenue, and the revenue always needs to be higher than expenses in order to be self-sustaining. Your income and expense statement is going to help you look at that and see where your revenue is and where your expenses are, and are you on track. They will also give you enough detail to drill down to areas that need to be addressed. Again, are you on track in your labor costs? Is it your fringe benefit costs you didn't project right? Are your food costs where you expect them to be? Did you spend more on supplies or technology? You'll be able to really look at individual line items to determine where you can make some adjustments if you need to. Again, comparing to the prior time period, typically year-to-date compared to last year's year-to-date, deviations from this trend can be noticed very quickly, and once again, questions can be asked and solutions can be developed. Monitoring those income and expense statements on a monthly basis provides time to address those issues, as I've said, and recalibrate before it's too late. You don't want to wait till the end of the year. You don't have time to make decisions. Do you need to make a menu change? Do you need to do some staffing changes? Do you need to try and do more catering? Do you need to change your catering pricing? It gives you time to look at some of your issues and make some decisions before it's too late. Other tools that I think are very important in using for managing your financial accountability are a monthly inventory. Monthly inventories are extremely important for a variety of reasons. It is important to calculate them for better control of your food and supplies. Do you have something that's been on your inventory for month upon month, and yet managers keep ordering more of the same product when you have it already in stock and you need to move it along? You definitely need to do monthly inventories to determine cost of goods sold. So when you're looking at your income and expense statements, they are taking into account what inventory you have on hand. For example, you may have purchased food for the end of the month, which is really to be used for the next month. So that's really an expense that's not for this current month and needs to be taken into account. By doing a monthly inventory and determining your cost of goods sold, that takes those factors into account. It also, with your doing a monthly inventory, lets your staff know that you are paying attention, and so you can control better for theft or loss of food products. You need good cash handling procedures. Who counts the register money at the end of the day? Is it a blind cash out? Does the cashier know exactly how much money should be being put into that drawer, how much money should be in that drawer at the end of the day? It is a good practice to not have that cashier know, so that if they're over or under, that money doesn't come out of the drawer. So you want them to just count the money and know this is the money that I have. They don't know, is that drawer $5 short or is that drawer $5 over? That really prevents some money moving around that should not be moving around. Who reconciles that money to the cash reports? Is that the same person every day? Do you rotate that? Is that the manager of the school? And what are your procedures if cash does not balance? So at the end of the day, if you are short $5 in that cash drawer, is there a procedure? Who gets notified? What do you do? Is there going back? Is there somebody who double counts that money? What is your system for handling those the cash procedures? You should have them, and they should be written down, and your staff should be well trained in this area. You also need to have proper procurement. Certainly it's required by USDA. But by having proper procurement and knowing your pricing at the beginning of the year before you start, or really at the end of this year before you really start rolling into the new school year, so you can better budget, you can better cost out your menus, and you can make better financial decisions. It certainly allows for far better money management and knowing what your price sets are before you start ordering food and supplies. Other tools that can be used are what's called key performance indicators. There are many. I believe that the Institute of Child Nutrition is going to be developing a beautiful handout that has, or training, with a lot of key performance indicators. There's many. I've chosen a couple today that I think are extremely important to be looking at. Your average daily participation, or ADP, and your meals per labor hour. Average daily participation, it's important to know how many students and what percentage of those students are you serving on a daily basis. Again, so you can determine trends. You can determine, looking at comparing us, allowing you to compare similar sized schools to determine, do they have the same set amount of labor? Are they roughly in the same amount of inventory? It really does help that way. So you can really make some good labor and purchasing decisions and projections. Your average daily participation is calculated by taking the total meals served and dividing by the number of operating days. It will also help you to determine, when you look at individual menu items, if your average daily participation on most days is 60%, and yet you have a menu item when you only have a 30% participation, it might be time to determine, is that a menu item that should be removed from your menu cycle. Your ADP is also going to help you set some participation goals and objectives. The Institute has some great references and some great resources on what are some average participation rates. And again, it's going to help you make some menu decisions. Another great key performance indicator, or KPI as they're called, is the meals per labor hour. This is a measure of productivity. And it helps you to determine, again, how productive your labor hours are in your kitchen, and are you on target? Do you need to add labor? Do you need to decrease labor hours? It's going to help you determine where you are on a consistent basis. The ADP plus your meal equivalents divided by your total daily labor hours are how you determine what your meals per labor are. Again, the Institute has some great, and in the end of this presentation, I have some website addresses where you can find this information on how to calculate them themselves. The acceptable range for your meals per labor hour are really going to depend upon the type of production that you have. Is it conventional or is it convenience? So if you are a conventional cooking system where you are doing much more foods from scratch, making rolls, doing meats and everything raw product and cooking from start to finish from scratch, those meals per labor hours are going to be lower on average than a convenience type system where much of the food comes in pre-done. So the question is, where are you in that continuum, and what do you think is going to be a good number for you? And I have a slide that's going to go through that in a second. Another key performance indicator is cost as a percentage of revenue. So your operating ratio that relates expenses to revenue, that's what your cost is. It's analyzed in food and labor costs to determine if reasonable and consistent with benchmarks and your projections. So your cost, food cost as a percentage, is your cost of purchased food divided by your total revenue. The industry average is 40 to 45%. Again, when you're looking at your cost of purchased foods, it is recommended that you take your inventory into account when you're doing that, not just what your invoices were by the end of the month. Your labor cost percentage includes your payroll, benefits, other labor-related expenses, again, divided by your total revenue. And again, this industry average is 40 to 45%. So when you are looking, going back to that income and expense statement, and you are looking at your year-to-date information, you want to look at, are you within these ranges? Is your food cost in the 40 to 45% range? If it's in the 55 to 60% range, something most likely needs to be done, because if your labor is in the 40-45% range, your expenses total over 100% of your revenue, you need to make some adjustments. This is a spreadsheet, just a quick little sample of when I'm talking about the meals per man hour and what they look like and how you would want to make some decisions on whether or not you think your schools are up with productivity. I've listed 5 schools here. The first 4, Burns, Burr, Capital Prep, and Classical, are all conventional kitchens that are self-operating. They have full production kitchens. Jamoke, Maine is what we call a pre-pack kitchen, where we're retherming already wrapped meals. There's very minimal production in that kitchen. So with a small, very minimal production, that 41 is, in our district, a good average, because we're looking to make sure there's very little, she's retherming, there's not a lot of actual hands-on production. There's no hands-on production at all in that kitchen. But what this spreadsheet shows you is at the very top rows, the lunch, breakfast, snack, and a la carte are actual figures. The average, that's their ADP for lunch, breakfast, snacks, and the a la carte, that's actual dollars. So it's $8, $4, $91, etc. Then in the blue shaded area, those are your meal equivalents. Lunches are considered 1-to-1. Breakfast, you use an equation of 0.67. The snacks is 0.33. And a la carte is the free reimbursement rate plus the value of the commodities. You divide that into the a la carte money to get you a meal equivalent. Your total meal equivalents add up then, as you can see, Burns is 576, 666, 741, and so on. You take the daily productive labor hours in your kitchen, and you divide that into the total meal equivalents to give you your meals per man hour. Our program has a fair amount of, is much more of a convenience style program than it is a conventional program. So when I look at these numbers, I'm looking for a range that is probably 20 to 22 on average for our production kitchens. And again, as I stated, the Jamoke, the pre-pack kitchen, I'm really looking for those to be about 35 to 40. So I'm looking at Jamoke's 41, and I'm very happy with that. I'm looking at Burns at 19. I'm looking for an average of 20 to 22. That 19 is okay. Now you would think when you look at Burr and you see that 25, you'd say, wow, they're doing really well, and Capital Prep at 21 is doing really well. But when I see that that 25 is significantly higher than the 19 or the 21, one thing that comes to my mind is I'm wondering if everything's running okay in that kitchen. Are all the choices out? Do the fruit trays look the way I want those fruit trays to look? Because that seems a little bit high to me, which means that that staff might be a little overworked or overburdened and therefore not keeping up as well as I'd like them to. When I go down and I look at that classical with a meals per man hour of 14, I know that there's a problem there. There's too many labor hours for the amount of meals that they are serving, and I need to address that. We need to go into that kitchen. We need to address what the staff is doing and ensure that we are either trying to find a way to get that lunch up from 377 to a higher number and get those breakfast counts up so that those labor hours can stay the same and it will increase the meals per man hour, or I'm going to need to cut back some labor to get that school in line because 14 for the type of system that we have here is too low and tells me that that school has some problems and probably has going to have some financial problems when I look at their financial statements. So aside from what the directors need to do and what's happening at the district level or your central office level, there are school issues that need to be addressed in order to have some good, sound financial health. And the school manager has responsibilities to help keep your program solvent. At that school level, the manager does need to monitor that ADP. How many students are you serving every day? Are you in a higher percentage rate? If you're not, why? Take a good look out. Talk to students. Why aren't they participating in your program? What can she do? Does the food not look right? Is it not cooked properly? There are things that can certainly be addressed. The manager is going to be reconciling your daily a la carte food sales. It's very important to have a good system in place. If you've put out 20 cookies to sell today, you should track at the end of the day, if you had 2 cookies left over, does your records show that you actually sold 18 cookies? Because that's how you're going to determine if any theft or something is going wrong with your a la carte food sales. Again, it's your school manager who's going to ensure that you have good cash handling procedures because that's where the cash is being handled, is at the school site level. Do they know what those are? Do they have a good system? Do they have a double counting of the money? Do they know what your requirements are? They also need to do good, accurate production records, again, to determine is there overproduction or underproduction. When we look at production records and we see 0, 0, 0 left over at the end of the day, that indicates to me that they've run out of some of our choices and our customer base might not be as happy. I want them to get as close as they can with that production, but at the same time, we want our schools and our students to have access to all of the food choices from start of the lunch period to the end of the lunch period so that each student, first and last, has the same opportunities. The school manager needs to make sure they're ordering properly and they have good inventory control because a lot of money can be lost here, especially in the volatile foods such as produce. So are they over-ordering? Are they under-ordering? Do they have a high inventory? Do they have a low inventory? Or do they have good systems in place? They need to ensure that there's good production techniques going on at those schools because, again, if the food doesn't look good and taste good, your customers aren't going to be participating. And the goal is to make sure that you have enough students participating to keep your program solvent. And presentation is going to be very important. Do they take pride? Does everything line up? Does it look fresh? Does it look good? Does it look eye-appealing? So where do you start? If you do not have good financial systems in place and this is not something that you've done well or do a lot of, then where do you start? You start by determining what it is you already do and what do you want to start doing and learning. Ask your business department, who's compiling your invoices for payment? Who's compiling payroll? Who's tracking those deposits? If that's not being done in your department by one of your staff members, who is? Who has that information? How can you get it? Can you look at what's being compiled for you on a monthly basis? Ask your colleagues what they're using for forms, software reports. What do they track? Do they have a good a la carte tracking system, reconciliation that they can share with you? What kind of paperwork do they ask their managers to do? What type of information are they tracking on a daily, monthly, annual basis? And if you don't know how to do any of these things, get some training on topics that you're not comfortable with so that you are comfortable with this type of information. And most importantly, you need to learn how to use Excel. It is a spreadsheet type software program that is going to be used for many, many and can be used to compile much of your finance information and help you do that. You don't need fancy software to gather and track the type of information that you can and should to have good fiscal systems in place. So the take-home moment that I would want you to know is that good financial management is data-driven. That is probably the most important thing that I want the audience to hear. You cannot make good financial decisions without data. And you need data to help you manage your program well. If you don't have a budget, learn how to develop a budget. Use your profit and loss statement to analyze your financial status on a monthly basis. You should be looking at that. You should know right where your income sources are. Did your money come in on time? Were you expecting your state reimbursement in October and now it's January and it hasn't come? And last year it did. These are the types of things that will show up on a profit and loss or your income and expense statement. Use key performance indicators that can help you manage your program. Those meals per man hour, the ADPs, your percentage of labor costs, your percentage of food costs, your inventory turnover rates. There's lots of good key performance indicators out there. Again, ask your colleagues which ones do they use. Look at your labor costs and really start to develop some short and long-term cost savings plans. Labor is going to be one of your highest expenses, and those costs, as we all know, are going up and up. How are you going to contain those costs? Your staff is certainly going to be entitled to getting their raises. Does every one of your staff members get health care even if they work 2 or 3 hours a day? Are there things that you can do to try and get some grandfather clausing in to try and contain some of these costs? And remember, most importantly, that your income is dependent upon customer satisfaction. Satisfied customers come back and purchase lunch tomorrow. And if they purchase lunch tomorrow, you have more income coming in, and that's extremely important. So really, when I look at how my financial health is, it starts with our menu and making sure that we have foods on the menu that our customers want. So the Institute has fabulous tools and resources. I've put a couple up here. They have a financial management training. You can go to their website and click on this link. Team Up has wonderful information. A lot of the financial management webinars and tools that came up across the country have been posted up there. So not only have the PowerPoint presentations been listed, but forms, other types of tools that other districts are using are up there and available for you to use and download yourself. If you need information on inventory, again, there's a great resource there, and also on procurement. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over. This concludes my presentation, and now I'm going to turn it back over to Liz.
Thank you, Lonnie, for that great information. I would like to take a few minutes to let you know a little bit more about Team Up and how to request a workshop. As mentioned earlier, Team Up for School Nutrition Success is a really unique learning experience that is designed to help school nutrition professionals improve their operations. This workshop will pair participants with a mentor so that effective peer-to-peer mentoring is provided in a variety of areas. The workshop will include panel discussions of creative solutions for implementing the regulations and possibly some specific training. The workshop may also have representatives from allied organizations offering resources to districts at no cost. The plan is to have school districts leave the workshop with a plan of action for moving forward. By providing resources in both training and peer-to-peer mentorship, schools will have the opportunity to make positive strides in providing healthy school environments with financial stability and strong student meal participation. Team Up began in 2014 with regional pilot workshops. Over the last 2 years, this initiative has expanded to the state level where state agencies have conducted their own Team Up events to provide tailored training and assistance for the specific needs of their states. Events have been held in all 7 USDA regions and in 47 states and territories. The next phase of Team Up will involve ICN piloting regional Team Up for School Nutrition Success workshops for managers. We will focus the events on managers working in districts of the directors who have previously been involved with the Team Up workshop in order to maintain the momentum and effectiveness of the program. Team Up workshops for directors can be requested through the Team Up website at www.theicn.org/teamup, and after the Team Up screen comes up, you will click on the Request a Team Up Workshop link that's on the right. State agencies and regional offices can request the workshop, and ICN will provide the materials and lead mentors free of charge, just like our other trainings. Districts can also request the training if they're able to pull together a large enough group of at least 25 directors. Team Up is a great fit for state conferences and meetings. You might want to consider Team Up as one of your pre-conference workshop events. As a reminder, the facilitators, or as we call them in Team Up, the lead mentors, will be provided at no cost along with the workbooks for the events. States can continue to conduct their own Team Up events without the assistance of ICN. Several states have already adapted the Team Up model for various trainings, and it's all based on the individual needs of the state. ICN is still happy to provide workshops for these events as well if they are needed. And I guess that wraps up our information for today. I'd like to thank Lonnie for sharing her expertise. But before we conclude, I would like to give you a few announcements. ICN will be conducting lead mentor training at our Applied Research Division in Hattiesburg on March 9th. As I mentioned earlier, Team Up for School Nutrition Success for Managers is coming soon, so be looking for that in the early summer. USDA and ICN will present Team Up pre-conference workshops at SNA's annual conference in Atlanta on July 8th. One workshop is designed for state agency personnel on how to conduct a successful Team Up event, and there are two others geared toward directors. Increasing participation and financial management will be the topics, and those events will be limited to 45 participants. Remember that all of the webinars are recorded and can be viewed on the Team Up for School Nutrition Success website at www.theicn.org/teamup. We also have snapshots of Team Up events that are now available on the site as well. These provide a brief overview of what's happening at Team Up across the country. Thanks again for your participation, and have a great day.